Yeah, well, good evening all. Welcome to the second meeting of July 2025 of the Growth Planning Committee of Yorktown. August. Oh, my God.
It's good I arrived.
It's August 5th.
Let's start again. Hey. Let's go back to the future here. Yes, welcome to the first meeting of August of 2025 of the Growth Planning Committee. I had missed the one in July, and that's what, unfortunately I said that. So we'll start off as normal, introduction of members.
Tom Smith.
Jane Evelyn.
Paul Hogan.
Dan Saunders.
Liz Johnson.
Ann Martin.
Mary Beth Gilbert, Board Select Member, Rep.
Galen Webley, support staff.
Nadia Crockett Curran, support staff.
Okay, so thank you all. No guests, but you're always welcome to show up and give us your feelings on whatever topic we're working on, or even one that we're not. First on the agenda is a review of minutes for July 15th, which I didn't see. I don't know if anyone else did.
I think that
July 1st I saw,
Lynn
July
sent
15th
them.
I didn't.
I didn't remember seeing them. Did you?
So,
I don't think so. Were they sent out?
I'll resend them. I think that Lynn sent them out, but it's possible that
Okay.
they didn't come through.
And that's planning board.
Yeah, I don't remember
Alright.
seeing them.
so we'll table that for the next meeting. So then we'll just jump into what we've been doing. So
Oh,
the
that's the
continued
first.
review of the proposed omnibus LUO changes for this November's ballot.
You want me to start?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My computer is updating, but as soon as it finishes, I will pull them up on the big screen.
So
It crashed right before the meeting, unfortunately.
I'll give a quick overview. So while Nadia's getting that loaded, so basically for the timeline, this is our last meeting that we have to get this in front of the Board of Selectmen for the November ballot. So hopefully everyone did their homework. What staff has done is we've highlighted certain sections that we think are crucial that, we could adopt. I think a lot of them are agritourism because you guys have pretty much beat that one. And we're going to hold off on stormwater for the most part. We're going to instead focus on just the shoreland zoning provisions that were missing that we didn't get to adopt in the June ballot. There was some clarifying amendment language that we had, especially in the area of net residential area definition. Those are things that I think are pretty not controversial and things that we can go through. So it's a lot of the statewide updates. Another section that we updated was the use table. We think that's something we can probably move forward with the Board of Selectmen. What we did was we added the manufactured housing, and that's a state statute requirement. So anywhere in your zones that allow for single-family and two-family development, you have to allow manufactured housing as a use. And so we just codified that in our land use table. Other sections.
Just turn the volume
Is it still loading?
Still loading.
No.
Are there any requirements on manufactured housing? Are there limitations or towns can impose size, dimensions, things like that on manufactured housing?
So you can put certain,
Just shut down your
I think it's certain roof pitch requirements,
Thanks.
but besides that, there's not really much more you can regulate in addition. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I mean, once that gets loaded, we can go into it. Was there any certain questions that people had in particular that they wanted to bring up until we can bring up the language?
I had just some questions from way back. In terms of language that's used, and this is like from section 4. And just, there were 4.15. So I was comparing the resource protection and the shoreland zones, and just looking how the various things are worded. And it's like simple stuff, but they seem to have the same thing worded in a different way in both of these. And it, like one place it says uses similar to uses requiring a CEO permit per Maine DEP Chapter 1000. The same thing
Yep.
is in the resource protection zone, just worded a little bit differently, and it just seems that we should try to be consistent in the way things are worded.
Okay. Well, so I think what you're referring to there in section 240-4.14 and 415 is one says similar uses requiring approval from the code enforcement officer per Maine DEP Chapter 1000. And then there's another one that says about if it was approved per the planning board. Is that?
No, it's number 5 in the resource protection zone is pretty much the same thing as number 6 in the shoreland zone, but worded slightly differently. And there was another one where one included driveways and the other one didn't. So I don't know, like in the resource protection zone, road and driveway construction for access to a use permitted within the resource protection zone is allowed, but then under the shoreland zone, it only says road construction. And there, I don't know, just minor differences, but I don't know, I would think within a document like this, we should try to be as consistent as possible when we're saying the same thing, essentially.
Okay.
And also, there was one that was missing, number 4.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
What section?
That's 240-4.14.
Oh, yeah.
Good catch.
Got something you want to put in there, or just?
Yep, we're gonna add that in. I'm gonna pull it up on the original and see what that was removed. So that was structures accessory to allowed uses.
That's number 5.
5.
We're under 4.14?
Yeah. It got moved down, maybe.
It might have been just an indent that was added.
Struck, and it just created
Yeah, because there was an extra enter added. That
Yeah,
was
that's
something,
something
someone
else,
just,
yeah.
yeah, it created a
Okay.
new bullet point.
Yeah.
So that one will be removed.
Okay.
And is timber harvesting allowed in both zones?
It should. Timber harvesting is allowed without a permit. It's up in, sorry. Should be allowed in shoreland, but not in resource protection.
I think it is in resource protection, but it needs approval of the code enforcement officer. Right?
That's the clearing of vegetative activities other than timber harvesting, and then it does have timber harvesting for a permit. Yep.
And is it the same in the shoreland? But I don't think
Shoreland.
it was listed in the shoreland.
I'm not seeing it there. I'll pull up chapter 1000 for that.
Yeah, number 2 says clearing or removal of in shoreline of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting, but it doesn't list timber harvesting as needing a permit.
Okay, timber. So it looks like Chapter 1000 allows it in both the shoreline zone and the resource protection zone.
With a permit.
Yes.
Yeah, so make number 4 timber harvesting, or switch that around somehow.
Or
Or just add timber harvesting to that 4 blank. 414.
so, and then number 2 says clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting. So we can harvest timber, but we can't remove vegetation?
That's under 414.
Under
Yeah.
both of them?
They're both allowed by a permit from the code enforcement officer. If we put the timber harvesting there, you would need a permit for either one.
Okay, so like on number 4, we're going to put in timber harvesting?
Yep.
And then what's the significance of number 2?
Number 2 is when you just clear vegetation, so sometimes people just, especially when they have shoreline property, they're not timber harvesting, they're maybe just like shrubbery and other type of grassy material, herbaceous material you're not timber harvesting.
So
Or
you
you're
need
taking down one tree, it's not like I'm harvesting
Right.
timber for commercial purposes.
So you need to have timber harvesting as a separate entity?
Right.
And the mineral exploration thing, actually,
Where in 414, where do I find out that it requires a permit?
which?
It's under that
A,
A,
at the top.
yeah.
Got it. So, would 2 and 4 make sense? If you add timber harvesting as 4?
Yes. 2 and 4.
I mean, why wouldn't you just say clearing and removal of vegetation?
Those are 2 separate uses,
What section?
In 2,
414.
In other words, you don't need, if you're gonna timber harvest, you need a permit for timber harvesting, but you don't need a permit for clearing or removal of vegetation to do the timber harvesting. You only need it for the timber harvesting. If you're gonna do just clearing of vegetation in and of itself, you need a permit.
well,
But you don't need 2 permits to do timber harvesting, is what that means.
Or, I think you do. Oh, other than timber harvesting.
but why wouldn't you say, since we're gonna add timber harvesting in 4, why would you mention timber harvesting in, I still don't, if someone's gonna remove vegetation and they need a permit, then that's simple, whatever the reason they're doing it for.
Yeah, Chapter 1000 separates those uses for some reason, so that's,
I see.
some towns, the other thing too is some towns with timber harvesting, they require, they sometimes manage it on their own, and there's other times where you get the state to help you with managing timber harvesting activities. So that could be why there's a separation as well. Code enforcement officers are required to enforce the clearing and removal of vegetation activities other than timber harvesting, but we can be selective on which options we want to go with timber harvesting. So that's probably why they're separated.
Okay.
So it looks like we have the language up on the screen, that way folks can follow along. I'll go back to the definitions section so we can go through that area. And again, I'm focusing on anything that's highlighted yellow, since we have such a short time window to review these items and send our recommendations to the board. The first definition is agritourism. I don't think you guys have any other things with that. The definition for attendee, that's again part of the agritourism use that you guys have been talking about for a couple months now.
So the agritourism, when you go back, it had, so again, I apologize because I'm just a couple meetings in. on this one, so I haven't been on the journey with you guys. But when I think about when I review this from the select board point of view, I'm gonna be looking to make sure that we don't have, stuff becoming event planning that sides as agricultural. So does the committee think that we're secure in that with this language?
We've discussed that specific issue, and I think that we've found a solution in that it does have to go through planning board review, and it is only as an accessory use to a primary use of agriculture or animal husbandry. So if they go to planning board and the planning board says, no, we can see you only have a goat and you're just trying to have an event venue, then they won't approve the application. But they need to show the planning board that they are primarily a farm of some variety, whether that's commercial, animal keeping, or agriculture, and that they want to do this on the side.
So instead of leaving it up, because I think what I'm looking for in some of the stuff that we're going through with the town and our ordinances is to not necessarily leave it up to a board, but to get more definitive and as much as we can definitive in our language of our ordinance. So if there's a way where we would be able to help the planning board or whomever is the decision maker on this to be able to define, like, 60% or 70% of your revenue has to come from agricultural, vegetation, plant sales, animal sales, or whatever. Or, I'm just looking for something a little bit more, because then what does the planning board say? Does one planning board deem 2 goats as being the necessary cutoff point, or is 1 goat sufficient? And I don't like to see variation as boards change people's point of view. So I will be asking when we review this from a select board point of view to make sure that we can be if we're going to add stuff like this in, to make sure that we're definitive as much as possible.
We have also required them to meet the state definition of a farm, to meet those revenue requirements. And I think it's still pretty restrictive. It would not be, I don't think it would be a particularly profitable venture to use this to just create an event venue. We've been pretty strict with how many events people are allowed to have. So we have tried to think about this issue from those angles and create a relatively restrictive section of this ordinance that is allowing for farmers to get a little bit of extra revenue, but not so permissive as to allow for the creation of event venues under the guise of a farm.
But you've rejected the suggestion. I mean, I know you guys always say, well, we can't avoid unintended consequences, and, developers are smart, and they're going to always try to dance around us, and we just got to do the best we got to do. And so my proposal was do exactly what you did with short-term rentals, and that is start with a number and then evaluate it in 2 years. And if we've made mistakes or we haven't done it right, we have a chance to come back and look at it and revise it, as opposed to finding ourselves with 10 of these wedding halls out there forever.
Yes.
And
So we looked into that, and, the difference between the short-term rental license is that's a licensed ordinance. And so when we look
could
at
make
this,
this a license ordinance if that's what it takes to.
we could explore that as a separate ordinance. I would caution against that, as we don't currently limit hotels and restaurants, which are, right now, under our current zoning, they are permitted in the farm and forest zone, which is something we are advocating for the removal of, because I don't think that's conducive to a farm and forest zone. And so we're adding this agritourism as the replacement language, because right now, under our current zoning, people can have a hotel and they can have a restaurant out in those areas and have events without limitation. Conditions can be put by the planning board, but right now we have no standards for event venues or event types on certain commercial uses. And so I think we are doing a very good job at targeting this and keeping it contained compared to what is existing in our land use ordinance right now.
But it seems, I agree with you completely that those don't belong in those zones, and limiting that would make more sense. But you're closing the barn door over here and opening up the other barn door, which would seem to be an inconsistent planning goal. If you don't want hotels, which have catering halls and whatever, then why let them in this way? It's not any less inconsistent with the zone because it's happening, a 250 person, tent is set up and you're having a wedding in the same zone. So I don't think that argument, for me anyway, that argument, I like the first part of your argument, I don't like the second part of your argument.
And again, I think we discussed this at length at some of our meetings, that, the policy goal, with having it agritourism focused is, land is expensive in Kennebunkport. I don't see people just farming for the sake of farming in town. They're going to need some sort of other revenue stream to help offset, the expensive land in town. And so part of our comprehensive plan is how to preserve our farming areas, especially in the rural parts of town. And this was one of the solution ideas that we came up with on trying to preserve that rural character in our town.
But no one could afford to buy land in this town whose principal use is going to be farming.
Well, we currently have a few that are.
They have the land.
And it's legacy, legacy ones. But and I think that's what we're having a discussion about as a town is, what do we want to see in our rural areas? And I agree, I don't think it's commercialization to the max, which is currently under our land use ordinance, and hasn't been exploited completely, but I think we need to curb it. But how do we keep that and preserve that rural character for the future?
So I have to, I'll wait till this is till you guys are finished and whatever the final is presented to the board. But as I read the words right now, I still feel like we're missing the mark. I don't feel like I've listened to, I think what we're trying to solve from what I just heard is that we have a handful, actually less than a handful, of farms in our town that we would like to give abilities to get different revenue in so that they can still stay a farm. So that I think is a good intention. However, then I play it on the flip side of it. If somebody acquired that farm and flipped it over, I don't see the standards of really making it. I'm reading the words and I don't see things that really keep it as a farm versus it becomes a social event menu place with a little bit of farming at the side. So I think that's the problem that I have just coming in, like I said, at the 9th inning and before it comes into the select board.
Maybe we have to recognize, because it's been brought up here before, we don't really have farming appropriate soils here in Kennebunkport. And maybe we need to understand, since the number of farms have decreased dramatically since like 1900, that the future of Kennebunkport is not going to be farms, that, maybe we're just trying to hold back the tide, and you just can't do that. We need more residences in our area. Maybe the growth in residences should be happening in the farm and transitional areas, because farming really can't sustain itself. So why force it to be sustained through something like this?
I think that we are seeing that residential growth in Kennebunkport, and it's not really the vision that we've understood from residents and from the committee in the past. But we haven't understood that what you're looking for is suburban sprawl, which is kind of what we have going on now. And so, the intention is to preserve those rural spaces. So we have not heard in the past that the committee is interested in chopping up the rural zone more than it already has been. You know, if that is where the committee is leaning these days, we
Yeah.
certainly can hear that.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but maybe it's really, you know, a pipe dream to expect that we're going to keep farms in Kennebunkport.
I mean, it's possible, but I think from a directionally correct, and in the spirit of what we've written, it's correct, right? That we do have some farms out there, and there are some folks that we spoke to who want to have this ability to have some other events which will bring in income and help support their farms, which would be good to keep in, because it's a good use of land versus, you know, just a bunch of residential homes, right? And that's what we want to see here. Obviously, the hard part is how do you do this so that it doesn't become an opportunity for someone to come in and just put a wedding event there that they can run 8 a year. I don't know if 8 a year would be a sustainable business model, right? To go buy a bunch of land and then just have 8 weddings a year in this farm, you know, beautiful little farmland. Yeah, I would imagine they would need to do that every week, you know, to turn the money and to get the investment. So I think that's one of the pluses that we have in here, that we've limited that number. Right? I don't disagree with your idea of trying it small and see what happens if we just allow 4 to occur. It'd be nice to have, you know, some way to manage that and learn from those 4 what we might need to tweak in the ordinance. But I guess we always have that opportunity too, right, to tweak the ordinance.
Well, you can't go back, you can tweak the ordinance going forward, you can't tweak the ordinance going back. You can't, if you allowed someone to, they're gonna be grandfathered. If you allow someone to have a wedding venue and you decide 5 years from now, oh, there's too many of them, we wanna make it more restrictive, I think they're gonna be grandfathered, right?
Yeah, they will be considered, we try not to use the patriarchal term.
Non-conforming use.
Yeah, we use it as non-conforming use, and certainly, any time you change zoning, and you remove certain uses from a zone, those existing uses that were in existence before the change are considered a non-conforming use, and so they're allowed to exist by right. They will eventually be hopefully phased out. That's the intent of zoning, is when you exclude certain uses, those uses will eventually be phased away, but they shouldn't be expanding. They should be staying at what their present state is, or less of an impact than what they were prior.
Well, I think the use would stay. The use of agritourism would stay, but maybe we find out that certain types of events don't work. Whatever
could
it might be.
Yeah, you can always change it.
Whatever, so you can pull those out as, right, and then they no longer would be able to use that type of event, right?
So where does 8 happen? Where am I missing? Where does 8?
So that would be under the performance standards under 247.15.
240,
16,
16?
Yep. That's what it says,
Okay.
240,
7.16.
so hard to get through this one.
Yeah, I think the committee struck a balance with trying to make this, that it's not a solely profitable thing for just doing events. And 8, I remember that discussion of 8 per year, and no more than 2 per month, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So it was pretty limiting on what, besides how many attendees you could have, which I think was
7.15.
10 attendees per acre,
Mhm.
and you have to have no less than 5 acres for the size of the.
Yeah, it is 15, so change
Oh,
that
15.
up on the definition.
Okay.
Oh,
The
the
definition
cross-reference.
says 16.
So if Kennebunk went through something, so we're not gonna get into the Kennebuck situation with the wedding cake house, right? So we have a farm surrounded by houses. And we're requiring the farm to be able to handle parking, nothing goes on streets, all that type of jazz is in here?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd refer the public to go look at that section, because that does really contain what they can do on a parcel.
We could add a line that these rules can all be changed if you're not good boys and girls.
I think that's, I mean, I think it's kind of an implied line in the ordinance, you know, it's always subject to change.
Well, you know, there's just,
247.16.
it's subject to change, but it also
7.15.
takes momentum to get things to change. So there's complaints, there's people that don't want to complain, there's, you know, before public starts to
goes to
complain,
8.
there's usually,
I don't know why this is going.
aggravation that's growing for maybe years. So like when I'm looking at things like this, I think of our very small town. I think of where the farms are located right now and all the residents that live around them, of which mostly everybody sitting at this table doesn't live near one. So what are we doing to the neighbors that live near them? So 8 times a year, they're hearing wedding music and bands and that type of stuff. And, you know, is that something we want to do? Because we've been through this with Goose Rocks Beach at Sandy Pines, where they wanted to have a special license to play music, and we granted to them during 5 to 7 or 5 to whatever happy hour, because neighbors at Abenaki Way could hear the music over the marsh. So I'm just very sensitive to when we start saying we're opening things to venues. I can appreciate, you know, things that we want to happen to have, you know, farms get additional revenue, but, you know, I want us to be very aware that you live next door to this farm. And this farm has a band, and it's not acoustic, and it's not violins playing, it's not soothing, it's head banging rock, and you're trying to put your grandkids to bed. You know, is that, and so this is the things that we get into, and I always go back to, we have a small town, and we have many of these venues where this type of stuff happens.
Well, number 3 says no amplified sound is permitted at any event past 7 p.m.
So we do have, and we have a sound ordinance, which is restrictive, and so you know, it gives us the authority to basically, you know, the police can be called and if the sound ordinance is being violated. We do have strict time limits in there so that, you know, there shouldn't be an issue with conflicting bedtimes. We have tried to do this pretty thoughtfully and look at from all of these angles.
Yeah.
When we pulled from other towns' agritourism ordinances.
Good.
So, you know, we spent several meetings talking about this and did, you know, we did look for any holes that were there.
Good.
And have tried to be pretty thorough.
Good.
I have, just for the record, for when it happens, I have house guests with a 1-year-old, and 6 o'clock is to bed. 5 o'clock is dinner, sound asleep by 6. Try to get to bed. Try to get the kid to, and that's not unusual. You know, people come and they want to keep their kids on whatever the schedule they have. So,
Sure, but you know, people are allowed to make noise outside of a regular event. People can be having a backyard barbecue, and as long as they're conforming to the sound ordinance, they're fine, which I think is not an uncommon occurrence in the summer. So I think that we've been pretty reasonable with the restrictions here. And while yes, there's the the off chance that someone may have a very young child who has a much earlier bedtime,
Well, I don't want to just, you know, hone in on and I appreciate everything the committee's done, and it's, you know, and I'm glad that you guys have, you know, really thought through this. And again, I'm coming in late, so I apologize for the comments. I'm just telling you, like, what I'm going to read through and how I'm going to look at it from when it gets in front of the select board. You know, it's just that, you know, part of me struggles with just how things are going to go to the limit. So we can sit here and say we have the existing farms that we have right now. We know the people that run them. We're pretty sure that they would want to stay inside these guidelines to be good neighbors. But then this is something that happens not for a limited time offer, that we're going to help people out for the next 2 to 3 years, you know, get through some business tough times or whatever. This is at this is our ordinance forever. And so now the farms get sold, things get changed, new owners come in, and then everything changes. And so I just, you know, we do have a rural part of town, and if this is truly to try to keep that farms, I think that's where I'm struggling with, is at what point does it stay farms and what time? It just seems like you open the door in our neighborhood to become an event planner, it's gonna become events.
Well, in here, I believe, right, is that they have their primary business has to be farming of some, agriculture of some sort. That has to be their primary income. If they don't have that, they can't do it, they can't do this.
Doesn't say primary income, does it? Does it say
No.
primary business?
Primary use.
Primary use.
So that's where I was getting, so that to me is where the gray starts. So if you said to me, if in this document it said 70% of its income had to come from farm agriculture, I'm in. Because that means they're doing some venues
Right,
to
yeah, I think we should
supplement,
have
and
that.
I feel good about that, because then they're just supplementing and they're pushing out the farm and the stuff that we want to hold on to. If we don't say that, then they're standing up in front of the planning board and say, I have 3 goats instead of 1. I'm primary, you know, so that's where
So
I
how
don't
are-
I don't like gray area on this.
I-
you know?
we- I
don't
think
like the gray.
We did discuss I believe we did discuss some percentage situation as a committee or something. We did discuss income thresholds at some point, but farming is so unpredictable that we didn't really feel like it was a fair thing to do. So, you know, if we insist that somebody has 70% of their income come from farming, and they happen, and, you know, the previous year they managed to meet this requirement, so they go to the planning board, they issue the approval, and then, you know, next year they have some catastrophic event and they lose a lot of their farming revenue. It doesn't mean that their primary use is not still farming as they're getting back up on their feet, but they should be allowed to maintain the use that they've been approved for. So I think where we consistently came as a committee when we discussed revenue is that it's challenging for a farm to predict what their revenue will be.
And how are we going
so-
to determine revenue? Are we checking their tax returns every year?
You could?
So
That's an administrative burden.
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna-
I think we're, you know, so this is, to me, you know, just to be honest, like I'm not going to be honest, this to me almost feels like we're trying to create an ordinance for 3 businesses in our town. And that's where I'm getting a little goosey, because we know what these businesses are, and I'm pretty sure they've got pretty steady income from their businesses, albeit, you know, because we know what their ventures are. Yeah, I'm
Well-
struggling. You know, I'll stop.
Totally, I hear you. I think we're trying to prevent 2 things. One, those existing farms from going under, and they could get a lot of money from a developer if they sold. So we're trying to prevent that. We're trying to allow them to hold on and pass their farm down to their own kids, grandkids, whatever, with the supplemental options. 2, there's nothing preventing someone from buying 25 acres and making a farm.
And
It
I
could be like a new farm.
and I do hear the point about, you know, are we catering to specific, existing businesses? But I think when Galen and I first started, so oftentimes when we bring something to the committee, Galen and I have thought about it and discussed it, and we watch trends and see what's happening. So we, yes, we heard from a couple people in town like that they were struggling, but we also can see that this is kind of a planning trend, the agritourism. Other towns in the area, the broader area, are also enacting agritourism ordinances, and we're seeing it happen more frequently, and we think that there's good reason. Usually, when we see things happening in the planning community, it's been researched, it's been looked at, and it's over the past few years has been becoming more and more common. And we viewed it as a good way to keep in line with what the comp plan is looking for in terms of keeping those farming businesses here in town. So well, it does happen to align with some of the existing businesses that we have in town. This isn't an ordinance for those people. They just happen to be in the category that we're trying to create an ordinance for the benefit of.
But for those of us who sat through the comp plan, all the meetings, all the workshops, as much as you have that concern and you see that trend, there is a far greater concern in this community about saving this community as a town for the people who live here, and to watch the balance between making it a completely town that it's just every bit about it is about tourism, and there is nothing left. Our hearts have been sucked out as a local community, our sense of community, our sense of neighborhoods, our sense of everything. And
100% agree.
and that's what we heard.
Yeah.
And you're coming to us and saying, we need more tourism. And this is a way to save farms. But, in the non-touristy areas of the state, farms are saved all the time. How are they saved? Maine Farmland Trust. They have a big pot of money. They lend it out so the farm can give an easement to the Kennebunkport Trust. They raise the money. They pay back the money over time to Maine Farmland Trust. The trust, it stays in the family. Every once in a while, you'll see Maine Farmland Trust putting up a property for sale because there's no longer a farmer left, and the family doesn't want it anymore, and it gets sold at a value that is diminished because of the farmland easements and restrictions. But the family got their money, 10 or 20 years ago. They were able to take money out of the farm because of Maine Farmland Trust and similar. So this isn't the only way to save a farm, and the farmers in this town have that option if they wanted to.
And I believe over 80% of the farmland in Maine has already been developed. So that is something that.
Has been developed?
Yes.
It's been
not been
lost.
preserved, it's been lost. And so that's why it is crucial to preserve those last final acres that you do have, that provide that rural character that you're looking for. Again, we're just giving advice. You guys asked us for direction on certain things. We've done research. We've definitely reviewed this in excessive detail. I mean, we've spent 45 minutes here today just reviewing this, and I don't want to waste more time. If you all don't feel comfortable moving forward with this language, that's fine. I don't want this to take the majority of the discussion because we have a lot to go through yet. So if you guys need more time to go over agritourism, I'm more than happy to wait. It's no burning desire for this, but I thought we've discussed this at length.
And we've come a long way from most people not thinking it was a great idea to people coming along and putting in restrictions so that people, thought we were doing the right thing. But we still have this concern. And my go slow suggestion would help, I think, the committee, certainly me, I'm just one.
So how would that be written, the go slow suggestion?
It would say that you go to the planning board, and the planning board can approve up to 3, 4, whatever your number is.
Instead of 8.
No,
Like
not
that.
events. I'm talking about
Oh.
permits. I'm talking
number,
about
yeah,
approvals,
yeah.
whether you call it a permit or a license or just an approval. In 2 years, just like we evaluate the growth permit areas and the permits, we're charged with looking at it and keeping the number at 4, or increasing the number, or cutting the number back.
So
And making them available first to the people who have farms, existing farms.
so you're basically putting your toe in the water to start the process. Would that be a difficult thing to incorporate?
Yeah, so I would caution against that, and I think our town solicitor would caution against that, because we already have ordinances in the books that are circumventing land use ordinances. Mass gatherings permit is one of them, that you can have a mass gathering of 250 people on your premise 3 times a year without just getting a license. There's no public hearing, there's no requirement. And so that's something in the books right now that, in talking to our town solicitor, she agrees we need to strike that out. And that's where the short-term rental ordinance, it's a little bit different, but there is a lack of communication with that document, that ordinance, with our land use ordinance. And so we are actually having an amendment that's gonna go in front of the Board of Selectmen that's gonna give closer communication between that ordinance and the land use ordinance, which wasn't something that was done in the past. But the town solicitor very much advises against creating a separate ordinance that's sort of separate from land use. You sort of really connect those together if you do. Because everything really should be going through either the code enforcement officer or the planning board for proper use approvals, and not creating these special little exceptions where you want to test something out. That's the only thing I would caution against. That's something we're working on other ordinances to bring them in line with your ordinances, because there is a proper procedure in place for issuing approvals, municipal approvals, that state statute authorizes towns to adopt. And when you create these separate ordinances, you're sort of circumventing that. So we just need to be very careful with that.
So are you saying that the addition of language to limit each year incremental review, perhaps of a number of permits per year, you're saying that that would be perceived as a separate ordinance?
I think that's what she would be looking at for that. I've never seen it in my over 10 years of municipal planning in 3 different communities where we've had a limit on how many uses you can have. It's not something you would see in a land use ordinance.
So it's a limit on how many permits
Yes.
are to be approved, can be approved in a year?
Correct. I have not seen that, but we can ask the town solicitor. It's going against your whole entire land use ordinance. We don't limit any other use in your town
You've got
right now.
it's kind of a different town, I would suggest here, in that some really good developers that figure out holes in our land use ordinance and then expose that and give us an unintended consequence. If they all played within the spirit of the land use, I think we'd be fine,
Mhm.
but that's not the case. So, having this other mechanism that the town can use, which may not be normal, might be appropriate.
What if we gave it a shot in terms of putting it before the attorney? And I know you want to proceed with something. If the attorney approved, it could go on to the ballot. I know you're wanting to get this going for November.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if, I think it's a good idea. I can see that in this area, the highest and best use of the land is going to be, somebody's going to develop it, going to make more money from that. And so maybe this would set a standard. And why not at least give it the opportunity of succeeding with legal counsel review? How does that fly?
So,
Yeah, we will take direction from the board.
So
It's,
what we could do, I think we'll table this one then. I don't think we put it forward.
Do we have
That's up to you.
time to table it?
you do not have time to table it for the November. If you want anything on the November ballot, it has to be tonight, but
So,
yeah, it sounds like there's more discussion that needs to be had.
Could we ask, though, that this be reviewed, what we're
Sure.
talking about, this proposal?
Sure.
And what are you naming it, Paul? You're naming this, are you,
I have a name.
come up with a name for it?
We don't have names for any other.
ecotourism permit.
The agritourism permit, perhaps a limitation, initial limitation, or
And it doesn't have to
annual
be,
review?
and growth planning doesn't have to be involved. Planning board could decide, if that's more comfortable to legal, as opposed to us having a role going in 2 years from now. I don't care who does it. I just think,
Why can't we review all this now? You ask the lawyer if that one phrase can go in, and if it can, and we've reviewed all this, then it goes on in November. If it can't, we have to table it.
The only challenge is, our attorney is very busy. She doesn't necessarily have time to review this. The deadline is because we need to review this language with the select board next Thursday. And so it's likely that the attorney will not have time to review this before Thursday.
Well, is there any problem with waiting till June?
In public.
No, there isn't.
No.
It's just up to the committee. So if you want it in November, it has to be tonight. If you're happy to wait till June, we can table this until another time.
The reason we highlighted this was because you guys had extensive detail over this. We thought you were very comfortable with the language.
General comfortable.
Yeah.
Sitting here, though, I've also come up with another devious plot that someone could use, where you could buy a nice 40-acre farm and then break it into 5-acre spots, and then have 8, like get 8 of these things going, and run 8 events a year on your
Well, we gave an
Big
acreage
lots.
limit. What,
5 acres.
really?
Yeah, you could have 50 people, small weddings.
I think given
So-
everything happening, what I hear is that you guys really might want to, I think it
So
would
we-
be good from the board, so I'll just give you a heads up. From the board, if this comes next Thursday, my other board members may not agree, so I'm only one of 5. So again, take that for what it is too.
Yeah.
They might all say you're crazy. But I have concerns about this one, because we need to think through, I understand what we're trying to do. There may be a simple thing that we can do just to help out the few farms that exist today, and to Nadia's point and Galen's point, maybe our land is different than it is in Sanford, than it is in Arundel. The bar is higher in terms of what people need to do for this, and so therefore it brings in different strategy, different types of developers. And to your point, Dan, we just exist in a different world, and we have to accept that, and we have to think through the ramifications that happen when we do these things.
So if we don't lose what we've worked on, and Nadia has worked really hard on this too, as well as you, Galen. If we cannot, we don't want to lose what we've done. So, but what I'm hearing is that there's just not enough clear-sighted decision to proceed. But I think that the point of the slow growth may be an issue that pertains to other ordinances coming up, that we should really have an understanding if that is a tool that we could use when there's something of this magnitude. So would this be appropriate to move forward with letting this table for?
Yeah,
Till
so
June?
we would just postpone it. We certainly, like, there's, again, other sections that I didn't highlight in here that we're gonna need more time to discuss it. So, we keep track of that. It's not like it's gonna be gone forever if you don't take action. But yeah, that's something we can do.
Can I ask a quick question? My wife was at a garage sale for Rocking Horse Farm, the place where Smirkus is. And apparently that barn was built, the owner told her. It was a wedding venue.
No.
She said she bought it 30 years ago. My wife came home with this industrial spatula. I'm like, this came out of an industrial kitchen. We both worked in one. Why did they have this? And she said, well, she asked the same thing, and the woman said, it used to be a wedding venue before they owned it.
No. They did work without a permit.
They did.
But we also, I mean.
No, my question was,
No.
if it was a wedding venue at one point, would they be subject, do they still have any rights to become a wedding
No.
venue again?
There's no rights. They were never permitted for that use.
But,
Okay.
and that's the case broadly as well. If you have a conditional use in the past and somehow that conditional use lapses,
Mhm.
you don't automatically get to pick it up again. You
Okay,
have to go
just
back to
wondering.
planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and that's the case for any conditional use. If, if somehow it lapses, you have to go back to planning board.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, so under definitions, body of water, this is the stream definition for shoreline zoning purposes. Next section is building height. This is within shoreline zoning area of special flood hazard. So when we adopted our changes in June, Maine DEP gave us a conditional approval. They said we missed this paragraph that they wanted added at the end. We did not add that section because we had a definition for building height already, but they wanted something that was a little bit more concrete and following what the state statute required. So we're adding that language back in. Just as a refresher for everyone, anytime that we deviate from Maine DEP shoreline zoning, we can always be more restrictive. We can't be less restrictive. And so if we pass something that's less restrictive, the DEP commissioner will approve it conditional upon us using whatever the state mandated statutory requirement is. And so that's what's in effect right now. We have to follow what this paragraph is, so we're just codifying this as a technical amendment. Similar with the Bureau of Forestry, that's a definition we just did not add in
question.
shoreline zoning. Yep.
Sorry, on building height, I posed it in the question, and I guess it wasn't here, but where did we capture the state law that says you can go above the flood plain level?
Right there in that first paragraph says, with respect to the existing principal and accessory structures, including legally existing non-conforming structures located in the special flood hazard within or outside of the shoreland zone, have been proposed to be relocated, reconstruction, elevated to be consistent with the minimum elevation requirements of the local floodplain management ordinance. So that's where that provision plays.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm not digesting this right here, but I looked today at the, 30 feet, 35
Yep.
feet. No reference to this, so how does that relate? How would anyone know?
The definition controls when there's a discrepancy. So the definition is going to control what the building height needs to be. So for floodplain management purposes, if they're meeting that scenario, that's where that first paragraph is going to play into effect with the 30 feet. It still has to meet the underlying zone requirements. So if there's a 30-foot requirement,
Yeah,
that's where Goose Rocks Beach, that would like control that right there. But if they need to elevate it because they're in the base flood elevation by 2 feet, they would then have that leeway from the sill to the roof peak, excluding cupolas and everything else. So that's where this language
okay,
controls
thank
it.
you.
Yep.
And that is for existing structures.
Right.
So you can elevate and measure from the sill. So the part that DEP wants us to add back in is in regards to new structures. They don't get that benefit of being measured from the sill and elevating, so getting to have extra height. They have to meet the regular height restrictions from the grade
For new construction?
Yes.
for new construction in the
So
flood
if
zone.
if you have a vacant piece of land that was never built on,
What if you tear down your house completely?
I'm using this scenario of if you have a vacant
A
piece
vacant
of
lot,
land.
okay, yep,
And they want to build a new single-family structure, you're going to use that yellow paragraph that we're adding, which is, you're doing it from the grade downhill. So you're going from the bottom grade. So you're not going to have a 30-foot high structure that's elevated by 5 feet because of the floodplain if it was a vacant piece of land. The only time you're giving that little exclusion is because you already had an existing structure on the
okay.
lot that was
So
already.
you have to, so people can't, with a 30-foot limit, does that,
So you
limit-
can't build a brand-new 30-foot house on 5-foot stilts. You can only build a brand-new 25-foot house on 5-foot stilts.
right, so does that eliminate two-story houses?
It might in some cases.
Depends on how,
For vacant pieces of land,
yeah,
which I don't think there's many of them,
depends on the
No,
base
but-
flood elevation,
yeah.
really.
right,
I'm sure there aren't many, but.
yeah. Good questions. Coastal wetland definition is again from shoreline zoning. We updated that to address their concerns that ours had a 7-foot elevation requirement. So that's again staying with the state. Cooking facility, so this was added as a new definition to deal with dwellings and areas that, there's been some ambiguity in our languages in the past, and so we're making it clear on what a cooking facility actually is. This has been the town code enforcement officer's interpretation with the building codes when it comes to how to determine if something is a dwelling or not. And so that's why we're adding the cooking facility, because having a permanent cooking facility is something that is important to determine if it's a dwelling or not. So that's why we're just adding that language in there to clarify.
So what does easily removed mean?
So that means
If
you,
there's a dishwasher and I have to pull it out and unplumb it, that's not easily removed, I assume?
so that's not a cooking facility, but like a toaster would be something, or toaster oven, it's just plugged into the wall, you just carry it, it's pretty lightweight, it's not hard to do. If it's an oven, because it's really heavy, it's, usually a special electrical outlet that you need for it, special power requirements, that would be considered a permanently fixed. So There's a difference, though. There's a caveat. So tabletop microwaves are considered easily removed, but
Right.
if one is fixed to the wall, that is considered a permanent cooking facility.
But, so it doesn't relate to non-cooking, this
Correct,
definition?
correct. It's just a cooking
So
facility.
if I had a refrigerator, that's irrelevant?
Yeah, that's irrelevant.
Okay, let me just,
And what this is important for is for bunkhouses. So a lot of people in shoreland zoning, they're not allowed to have another dwelling on the premise. And so what they will do is they will put countertops, they'll put a mini fridge or a full fridge in their accessory structure, a garage. And then they will usually have like some kitchen appliances of some sort. And so we clarify that you need to have something permanently fixed if it's a dwelling.
got it.
The
Okay.
courts have ruled that we can't count appliances and things to that extent. So that's what that's pertaining to. We did update our definition for dwelling unit. Am I doing that right? There you go.
Just,
It's down a little bit. It's in yellow.
it's highlighted, yeah.
There you go. So that's, again, updating it to keep things in line. We tried to mirror our short-term rental ordinance with that as well, so we're trying to keep things fairly consistent moving forward. But this is from the building code as well. So remember, the code enforcement officer not only has to enforce the land use ordinance, but he also has to enforce the building codes, the uniform building codes. And so the definition of building codes is reflective of this. We're trying to, again, mirror things to keep things easy for administrative purposes.
And what's the significance, I didn't get the last sentence, why the shoreland zone dwelling unit would be any different than dwelling unit definitionally anywhere else in town. Within shoreland zone, the dwelling unit includes seasonal rental units. Why wouldn't,
That term came from Chapter 1000. I'm not sure for the genesis of why. I can pose that question to Maine DEP to get that answer.
that's their language? Okay,
Right.
it did, I don't.
Yeah. That's been in the ordinance for quite some time.
Yeah, no, but it just doesn't make, I don't understand it. Not that it doesn't make sense, I just don't understand it.
I'm sure someone probably challenged it saying, well, this is just seasonal. It's not an actual dwelling
Right,
unit.
right.
It's just a seasonal cottage. So,
Only seasonal, 12.
Not for dwelling.
It's a short dwell.
Event staff will probably
It's a
table
dwellette.
with.
For so long.
Yeah, it's a dwellette.
didn't know what you guys want to do about farmers markets.
I have done some looking into food trucks. I think it's maybe worth tabling that till June, so we have some time to really flesh it out. But I will forward the committee the ordinance language from Kennebunk and Arundel. They do both have food truck ordinances that are pretty comprehensive. So I think if food trucks is something that the committee was interested in, I think we would want to give ourselves the time to discuss it and really flesh out what those options would look like, especially since, I don't picture November through June being the most popular food truck season. I think that people won't really be, put in the lurch with us waiting till June. Same thing with farmers markets, not the most popular farmers market season.
I agree.
Well, not
Wait
that,
till-
farmers markets we can talk about tonight, but
Because
I know
farmers
food
markets-
trucks at farmers markets has been a specific
Right.
interest. So I think that our food truck ambitions would not suffer necessarily from waiting until June.
I agree. Yep.
I forgot to highlight, the footprint definition is from shoreland zoning for Chapter 1000. We're gonna add that in there. For some reason, mine's not highlighted, but
Hold on,
that one is.
don't go. Can you go back?
Yeah, go
Oh.
back.
I hadn't seen that, or I missed it. Okay, thank you.
Shore frontage is added here. Again, we're keeping it in line with Chapter 1000. Same with functionally water-dependent uses. Individual private campsites is another use that was in Chapter 1000 we did not add, so this is a new definition that we are adding. Kitchen and kitchenette, so this is a new definition that the code was suggesting adding It's related really to a lot of rumors and the hospitality industry, how it's changed over time, where they're having these suites. So we had to have some sort of definition for what a kitchen and kitchenette is to help in addressing this, because roomers are not supposed to have separate cooking from the main residence. That's not the intent of what a roomer's license was. We are tabling livestock right now because our state legislature, as you remember, we were concerned about, the right to food and what was happening, and the legislature in their infinite wisdom decided to erode home rule again in proposing new regulations and rules on towns for how they can regulate, especially chickens. So by right, you're allowed to have 16 chickens on a premise, doesn't matter what the lot size is. And so,
36.
was it 36?
I think it's 36.
Oh, 36. There you go.
36 chickens.
So, we're still reading that language to see if we can regulate other livestock and things, because I think that is a concern for health safety purposes. So this is not going away, but it's not something that we wanted to discuss for the November ballot. Lot area is, again, reflective of Chapter 1000. And lot coverage we're not going to touch because of, it's dealing with stormwater management, and we're still going to address that later. Marina definition is being updated for Chapter 1000. Net residential area is, again, a suggestion by both the town solicitor and the code enforcement in striking out this 15%, this ambiguous language that has been in our ordinance since the beginning. It has caused a lot of confusion and issues with enforcement, and so we recommend removing that provision, as we believe there's other provisions in this section that deal with the roads and other areas that aren't developable. So. And I think outlet stream is another definition from shoreline zoning. We are recommending striking out the accessory pier, dock, and wharf. So this was an old provision in Chapter 1000, but it's been since removed. And so we're trying to get in line with the requirements of the state.
So what does this take out?
This is for accessory piers, docks, and wharfs.
So
But what is it?
what's the impact? What does this mean?
So it means residents, if you were just doing a residential type pier and dock, there was different frontage requirements that you had to meet. And it was less restrictive than the state. So we weren't allowed, again, we're not allowed to be more lenient than the state is. And so we're again bringing this back in line with commercial is the same thing. You have to have a certain shore frontage in order to have a new dock placement. I think in our ordinance, if I remember correctly, it was like 70 feet of shore frontage for an accessory dock or pier that wants to be placed in. And I think the minimum, if I remember correctly, is 150 under the state.
So what happens for people that have them right now and they need to replace it?
They're existing non-conforming.
What happens if a storm came in and took it out?
Yep, we had this example actually happen. So if they have it damaged, they have up to 1 year to get a permit to replace said structure.
Okay, so
Yep.
they're still in the non-conforming 1
Yep.
year.
Yep.
You get it done in you come for a permit for 1 year
Yep.
and you can stay in your non-conforming world?
Yep.
Okay.
And the planning board can grant, I think, a year extension.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If they grant it.
If like something happens, financing or something happens, and they can do that. Yep. Road, if I remember, if that's the next section. So this has been changed over the years, and it's caused a lot of issues in our enforcement measures. So the roads included driveways at one point, and then in 2014 we excluded them. This is causing a policy issue in enforcement and also with planning. So a person puts a driveway in with a right-of-way, and they say that's road frontage in order to meet the requirements for new lots that are created. And then they put new structures, like a garage, under our current land use ordinance. If you're a driveway, there's no setback requirement. But as soon as you add another dwelling, you add 3 dwellings, it becomes a road, now the setback has to apply. So instead, we're saying, put the setback, if you're doing a driveway, private driveway, right-of-way, there should be a setback from that. And that's what we're doing here, we're including that back in, because usually driveways do evolve to streets. So, and this is dealing with right-of-ways, not, you just have a driveway on your property, it's just for your own use, that's not an issue. It's the right-of-way is the trouble we're getting into.
And so this goes back to somebody that has a driveway that eventually will develop
Into a
lots,
road. Yep.
lots behind them.
Yep.
And it becomes a road at
Yep.
that point. And so what you're saying is the setbacks,
Mhm.
I missed that point on the
Yep.
setbacks.
So right now, there's no setbacks for driveway rights-of-way easements that go through a property.
Okay, so a structure can be right
Yep.
on top of the driveway.
Yep. And so what
And
happens is,
then it becomes a road and the structure's right there.
yep, and then you don't have
that's
enough
the road.
right-of-way either, so that's the other issue that you run into is utility lines,
It's
road.
everything.
Yep,
Okay,
Yep.
so anything that it is has to, okay.
Yep.
Unless it's a personal pure
yeah, let's just, yeah, it's on your if it's on your private land and it's just to access your
driveway.
drive, that's not an issue. It's when it becomes a
When it
right-of-way.
becomes, when it has the potential to be an access
Yes, that's where it becomes,
to
If,
let.
if you make a driveway and you give it a 50-foot right-of-way, clearly you have future plans, or potential future plans.
Yeah.
And so we just want to make sure that those are not, impacted in the future by things being built right up against that.
Now we understand
Why
how
don't
all
you just
the
leave the
barns got right
yeah,
next to the roads.
yeah, now you know why the
I
building's all,
understand how
yep,
that happened.
yep, that's
I always
fine.
wondered how that happened.
But why not just leave it as it is for a single-family home, and if they come back and say, oh, we want to put another home in the back, then you say, well, that's fine, but now you're gonna have to hit the road requirement.
So if it's just a driveway for them,
Yeah,
it's not an issue. They don't have a right-of-way. If they're putting a right-of-way in, that means they're using it as a shared access for someone else. That's where it triggers the setback requirement,
Yeah, or for a future someone.
or for a
else.
future, like they just want to put one in.
So you would see that on a site plan on a,
Yep, when they submit for a land use permit, if they're just constructing a road, we would see that right-of-way.
yeah, so it only
If they
becomes a
didn't show
problem
the
if
right
you're
of way,
adding
they
a
would-
second home.
Correct.
Doesn't impact a single,
No,
anyway, okay.
no. Shore frontage, shoreland zone, again, we're just updating those with chapter 1000. Structure definition is again chapter 1000, so it has gotten a big modification here. The state is really trying to close in on what's a structure, because they're really concerned about, different houseboats and other things that they're trying to, people circumvent. Again, they try to circumvent the state rules. We always have to keep updating things to keep with the times. So this is an update for chapter 1000. Same with sustained slopes and an upland edge of wetland. And vernal pool was a staff recommendation. And this comes from the state definition. Because we have vernal pool referenced a few times in our ordinance, but we don't actually have a definition for it. And so this is, again, referencing what the state currently defines as a vernal pool. So if there's nothing else there, Article 3 is, again, a minor amendment. It's just referencing the General Development 1 districts. That's a state shoreland guidelines, and so we just reference what development district, because there's 2 different development districts. So we're just referencing that dock and riverfront zones are District 1. I think that's it for that section, if I remember correctly. Article 4, now this is when it comes to agritourism, so we'll ignore those if we want to postpone those for now. The only thing that's really changing in the land use table for the village residential zone is adding manufactured housing.
So can we define for me manufacturing housing? What are we defining it as?
I have to go to the definition.
Simply speaking, we're thinking, it's, but I think what people would be most familiar with is like a modular home or a mobile home. Right? Is that?
Yep.
Isn't a mobile home?
So manufactured home is a structure or structures having the meaning given to manufactured housing as defined in 30-A MRSA, section 4358, subsection 1A. You want me to
We all
pull
know
that
what that
up?
is.
Let me pull that up, because there's two types.
Is there
There's
no
type A and type
definition
B.
for it?
And one is modular, is it on a chassis with wheels, or is it on a
On the
fixed
foundation.
foundation,
Right.
which is more the manufacturing type homes.
So, okay, so this is manufactured, meaning, so strictly, so,
They're built off, they're constructed off-site
Site.
and they're brought to the site.
but they're not movable.
They-
Once they're
there
on
is a-
site, they're not movable.
There is a type that can, because we do
What's
allow.
this? What section is it?
It's 30-A MRSA, section 4358. There's two different types, and we have to allow both.
So one has a concrete foundation and the other does not?
One's like on a chassis, and
Okay.
then you can put like skirting around it, and the other one, it's on a foundation of some sort.
What about prefabs?
4358. Yeah,
Prefabs,
yeah.
even custom prefabs?
It's brought to the site, yeah, that's manufactured. So here's the regulation for that, and that is 1A. Structural units designed for occupancy, I can't read it from that far.
Manufactured housing means a structural unit or units designed for occupancy and constructed in a manufacturing facility and transported by the use of its own chassis or an independent chassis to a building site. The term includes any type of building that is constructed at a manufacturing facility and transported to a building site where it is used for housing and may be purchased or sold by a dealer in the interim. For the purposes of this section, two types of manufactured housing are included. Those two types are: 1, those units constructed after June 15th, 1976, commonly called newer mobile homes, that the manufacturer certifies are constructed in compliance with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development standards, meaning structures transportable in one or more sections, that in the traveling mode are 8 body feet or more in width and 40 body feet or more in length, or when erected on site are 320 or more square feet, and that are built on a permanent chassis and designed to be used as dwellings, with or without permanent foundations, when connected to the required utilities, including plumbing, heating, air conditioning, or electrical systems contained in the unit. And 2, those units commonly called modular homes that the manufacturer certifies are constructed in compliance with Title 10, Chapter 951, and rules adopted under that chapter, meaning structures transportable in one or more sections that are not constructed on a permanent chassis and are designed to be used as dwellings on foundations when connected to required utilities, including the plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and so forth.
Includes both of them. Mobile homes and modular homes.
But mobile homes that become fixed is how I sort of read that. Not mobile homes that stay mobile.
No,
With or without permanent foundations
Okay.
that are built on a permanent chassis. So it doesn't say that they can't move, they just,
And the
It's very
purpose
hard to move.
of in our ordinance means what?
I'm sorry.
Putting this definition in our ordinance means what?
We're just codifying what the state says we have to do.
we have to allow manufactured housing
Wherever
anywhere
single
single family is allowed.
Do we not already? We don't know.
We haven't been updating our ordinance for some time, so we have been issuing permits for manufactured homes
Right,
in all zones.
in all zones.
Yep,
And
single
mobile,
families allowed.
and mobile homes?
Yep. They
Okay.
can do it.
So we have not done it.
Correct. We're just making sure that
it's in
future
there.
people who, it does
Future
happen, future people,
Future people.
when ordinances aren't kept up to date, people do not realize what they have to administer and what they don't have to
So
administer.
any place that there's a single
Yep.
family dwelling allowed.
Yep.
A modular home defined as 320 square feet or above is allowed.
Yep.
And I get confused. So does this also then mean tiny homes? Are tiny homes 320 square feet?
Depends on
They're
how tiny
pretty
it is,
small.
I guess.
Some of them could be smaller than that.
Smaller than 320?
I think it's like 250, I think, is the minimum for.
Yeah,
Okay. So this still is, okay.
That's why if we go to the land use table at the very end, we did strike out single family in Dock Square, because we said that's not really, I don't think there's any single family there. But I don't think that's the aesthetic we're looking for, is to allowing modular homes in Dock Square. So we, by excluding single family in that zone, we're not adding manufactured housing in that area.
And to be clear, single family does not exclude mixed-use residential. So, people can still live in Dock Square, but they would be connected to a commercial use of some kind. It's just excluding a standalone structure
Single
that's
family.
only used as a single family.
And Dock Square is Dock Square.
It's really small. It's pretty much just Dock Square.
It's Dock Square.
Yeah. So we go to the, actually the tape, yeah.
so in a year from now, when the new law kicks in on density, you could have a 5,000 square foot lot anywhere
In
in
the growth
town
area, yep.
and pack in 3 or 4 mobile homes next to each other within 5 feet of each other?
Be tight, wouldn't it? Yeah,
But if they only have 5,000 square feet to work with,
yeah, it's
they'll
pretty
be-
tight.
it's the only way they can really do it to have. that.
So what's a mobile home park? Let me just ask, I know we have a definition,
Yeah.
but would that become a mobile home park? Which would be subject to some regulation?
I'm not sure, once the state has stepped in.
So this is the Dock Square zone. It's, as you can see, it's
Sorry.
very, very small.
The blue?
Just the blue,
Yep.
yeah. So there's, Dock Square itself, there's a tiny bit of Ocean Avenue, Cross Street, and a little bit of Temple Street, and that's it. That's Dock Square.
And yes, a mobile home park is, in our definition, and I have not read updated state statute language to compare, let's see if we're in compliance, but it is a, mobile home park is a parcel or land unified ownership designed and/or used to accommodate 3 or more manufactured homes.
So if someone wanted to do this and they put 3 or 4 on a mobile home park and they're subject to some regulation,
We have performance standards for mobile home parks.
does that include like spacing, within it?
There was a section on that.
I don't mean to
I'm not that
distract
familiar
us.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't
Okay.
usually run into that one, but
Right,
yeah.
But are we gonna have to think through those, or are those,
yes.
things like that are automatic, like, yep, that will kick in? Or is this one of these things where we have to understand whether or not our mobile home zoning would actually apply, or the state rule will overrule all that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna wait till the dust settles.
Yep.
To figure out, is this gonna be a mandate or is this something voluntary for us to do? And then we will certainly, if it's a mandate, we are gonna have to look at all of that
All
and
that.
figure out
Right,
how we're going to
right.
navigate.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it's an unknown right now.
Yep.
It's
How
not
do
a
you-
definitive
sorry.
rule.
How do you determine mixed use? So I keep thinking about Shea Rosa, which is in the Dock Square zone. So if somebody wanted to put in a single-family home there, but they realize they can't, they need to have it be mixed use. So they have to have some sort of a little business there. Is there any requirement relative to the business aspect of it?
Says the primary use to which the principal building may be devoted, which blends a combined residential use and commercial use. For purpose of the lot size requirements outside of shoreline zone, the residential mixed use shall be defined and be considered as a single use. So it's pretty vague. I mean, what the commercial use is, I mean, they'd have to get site plan approval from, they're going to have to anyway, because I think that's a conditional use in most of the zones, if I remember correctly. So they're gonna have to go to the planning board and explain what they wanna do. For the
Okay.
residents and for the commercial.
I'm interested in talking about the chickens when this all comes up.
36?
Yeah.
Lot of eggs?
36 per unit.
They'll be in the back side of the restaurant. So we passed over, when we were going down to manufactured housing, we had farmer's market, so we were adding that where?
That was in the village residential zone. So far, village residential, you had, village residential east was listed.
What is this?
You had it listed
Dock
at Riverfront
Square.
Zone, Cape Arundel Zone. And Cape Porpoise East and West, Cape Porpoise Square, and Free Enterprise Zone. I think that's it. Okay,
Under
I'm try-
farm and forest, it says farm stand only.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you guys, I don't think I was at that meeting when you guys discussed. Is there a reason you didn't include? Farmers
Markets and
markets.
farm and forest, it
Yeah.
just isn't in there.
I think we
It might have
intended,
just been administrative oversight.
I
Okay.
think you want it where there's parking, right? Available,
one would think.
Yeah.
which is
You're
the
not gonna
areas,
spend-
which is the areas that you have highlighted.
The only other big thing, again, I know we're not discussing farmers market tonight. The only thing to mention is the farm and forest zone. There was a lot of changes there, and it was, relating to agritourism as a possible substitution for some of these uses. But we were recommending striking out bed and breakfast, clubs, funeral homes, golf courses, health institution, hotels, inns, libraries, manufacturing, motel, nursing home, professional business offices, restaurant, retail businesses, theaters, veterinary clinics, warehouse, and wholesaling. So what I can share with you, the genesis of why there's so many uses in the farm and forest zone, is I went back through the land use ordinance since the 1970s, and when the farm and forest zone was split off, it actually used to be the free enterprise zone, all that area. And so when they split it, they just copied what the uses were. They didn't think about what they wanted to change there. And so I think it's time to look at what commercial uses are compatible in that farm and forest zone to keep us in line with what the vision is for the community. So that's the changes.
So why leave mobile home park?
I think that's the only zone that allows, free enterprise is the only other zone that allows for mobile home parks.
We don't, under the new law, we have to allow the structures, but we don't necessarily have to.
I thought the
Allow.
law required us to allow it anywhere, a mobile home park,
Just the manufactured housing,
just manufactured housing.
correct.
I recall discussions many years ago where mobile home park was supposedly allowed anywhere.
We can take a look at that.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. I think it's all part of the discussion of
That was the idea
the,
of affordable housing back then, right?
Yeah.
Way back
way back
when.
when.
I think a mobile home park in our town could be viewed as,
Not exactly affordable housing?
not exactly as
Not exactly at all.
seasonal,
Seasonal.
Yeah.
Very
seasonal
seasonal.
non.
Think of Old Orchard Beach with that, yeah.
Short term.
No.
very seasonal.
Think of something with the name of Pines in it.
Yes.
So,
That's a campground.
Have you really looked at
That's a
it?
campground. That's what a campground is.
Have you
Hidden
looked
Pond's a
at it?
campground?
I'm going there.
No, Sandy Pines.
Sandy Pines.
Sandy Pines.
Oh, well, that's, no, but Hidden Pond came in.
so should we put on a farmer's market not in here
Oh, we did.
now, or wait until we have the?
I think until you guys are comfortable with it, it's not something we're sending to the board,
Okay,
so.
okay, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to put it on the list as, until we have guidance on how to actually do it.
Are you comfortable with the removal of the commercial uses though in the farm and forest? Because that's where a lot of the changes are.
Yes.
Yeah, no, they
Yes.
seem.
Okay. Then we go to the different shoreland uses. So we are adding that timber harvesting for, that Jane caught. Thank you for that. And then there's the 10 cubic yards of earth. So that's again reflecting of chapter 1000 for that. And I'll work with the town attorney on the similar uses section to keep those uniform, the verbiage. I think that was, there's a reference. I'll have to see if that reference is still helpful, because that's the non-conforming section. Do we have that section? 8,
Fire.
This one, 8.3.
A and B.
I mean, they still exist. I think it's just referencing back to them, right?
What is it? .3 A and B.
That's expansion of non-conforming structures.
It's funny, most people don't think about what zone the house is in when they're interested in buying it.
No, I have no idea.
No idea.
It's not on the listing, it's not.
I went down to the courthouse and looked up the deed.
People buy a house they don't know or look to see
The
what's
location.
Right.
in terms of what's permitted.
So I don't think that
No
section needs to be
idea.
updated.
So I'll take that out.
Nope. That was an old citation to the footprint expansion, so we don't need to update that one. Where are we at? Is this the individual campsite one? I think that's where we were at next.
Yeah.
Oh, go back to 5.4. So if we go back to 245.4, Maine DEP did review this draft ordinance, and he did catch one change that we should probably make, and it's just a clarifying language. So because we did adopt 5.20, which is removal of vegetation and replanting requirements, he said you could technically remove this paragraph right here. So that was not something that we've originally had in the document, but I wanted to bring to your attention. It was something that he caught this week when he was reviewing the language for compliance with Chapter 1000.
So are we becoming more restrictive or less restrictive?
It's redundant language. This language is already in that other section, so he's just like, let's clean this up.
Okay.
Yep.
Quick side question, speaking of invasive species.
Yep.
Is the town doing anything about all this Japanese knotweed?
Oh, this one?
Not that I know
Everywhere.
of.
It's everywhere and expanding fast.
Japanese knotweed and Oriental bittersweet.
Oh,
is what- at the beach.
bittersweet.
It's everywhere.
Yep.
Bittersweet is.
It's really bad stuff. No, nothing?
I don't think there's any,
There's no
Mary
funding
Beth,
for it.
do you know anything? No. Oh my gosh.
it's up to, I mean, there's two things. Is it on town land? And should the town do something about it? And B, if it's on private land, some people don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
It's
Japanese
so
knotweed?
incredibly invasive. And it's all lining Old Cape Road and everywhere else, but
Yeah, Route 9
everywhere.
by, where Wolf's Lobster Shack is. Look right before that if you're approaching it to go buy lobsters.
Ask,
Okay.
On the left side.
It's also unfortunately almost impossible
Yes.
to get rid of.
yeah, but
so-
it's only gonna get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I think, it's unfortunate, we just don't really have, I don't work for the Public Works Department, so this obviously, don't have a whole lot of advice to give there, but my expectation is that they simply don't have the staff time to devote to,
I don't know how-
daily ripping up of new knotweed.
But
Mary
you
Beth,
could
can you
educate
ask,
people, the town could educate people with the Conservation Commission or somebody on when to trim it.
Well,
Like,
we
it's-
have,
it's
we have all
important.
these different committees, right? So we have the one, what's the one committee's name I'm looking for?
Conservation,
The tree
Is it the
commission?
Conservation Committee?
there's
Yeah.
the tree
No,
committee.
it's not the tree.
It's really the
Conservation Committee.
Conservation
Yeah.
Commission.
So they've done like, native planting and that would be the
Right,
very.
but they haven't
It
done an
really-
education
It needs to
thing.
be addressed.
they could
Like
do
up in
it.
Rangeley, they're doing massive work about it. So can you ask somebody on the board or?
I think it would be good to send a note to the Conservation
Yeah.
Committee. That would be the group
I
that
mean, I
would
think
start
education is
addressing
what,
it. Yeah.
when to trim it, how you can get rid of it, how you can try to get rid
I
of
don't
it.
think you can get rid of
What it
it.
looks like.
Yeah.
What it looks like, yeah, since half the people on
You
Well,
need to get
if
that.
you trim it, it thinks, it's like AI. It thinks like, oh my God, they're trying to
gotta
get
get to
rid of
work.
me. And the roots go under and sprout up elsewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they go a
It
long
makes
ways
it
under,
actually
yeah.
expand even more if you trim it.
Okay, back on task.
Anyway,
All right,
it needs to be addressed.
all right. By some other committee though. We got enough on our plate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So section 240, 5.21 is individual campsite, private campsites. This is the performance standards that are in chapter 1000. Certainly you can be more restrictive than the state, just can't be less restrictive.
Have we looked at this before?
It should have been.
Mm-hmm, we have.
Okay.
And this is particular to the shoreland zone. This is where that use is regulated.
I played a typo in the photograph, missing an O.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what happened there. Again, this was your agritourism was under the parking standards for 6.9, so we won't touch that one. We did update 246.10. This is the residential parking standards. So again, we tried to simplify this language that was in front of us. Tried to make it understandable regarding number of spaces required for depending on if it's a studio to 2-bedroom unit or if it's a 3 or more bedroom unit, how many spaces they would need. So again, we were trying to, again, address some of the housing challenges and how to address multifamily type development styles, multiple units. So we went off basically the bedrooms, how many bedrooms it is.
So should this just say shall be provided with off-street parking spaces?
Yes.
So people can put in more than one space if they want to.
Yes, they can.
Wait, what does that say? Shall be provided with 2 off-street, okay.
And does this all have the potential of going away,
Does it have potential for what?
going away with the new law? We can't restrict.
We can't be more restrictive in our housing for affordable housing has the only one that has less restrictive requirements. We can't impose stricter standards than what a single family is allowed to have.
We can,
We cannot,
we cannot.
no. So what we did here was our multifamily type developments, they had different parking. You said the multiplex, they had different parking requirements. And so instead of saying each single family dwelling, we're just saying a dwelling unit. Depends on if you're a 1-bedroom to 2-bedroom or a studio, or if you're having a 3 or more bedroom. Depends how large you have it, is how many parking spaces you have.
So if I put a year from now.
Yep.
I'm a pessimist.
Okay,
I'm thinking this is gonna happen. I put my 3 mobile homes on, or 4 mobile homes, how many parking spaces, and each one has 2 bedrooms, how many parking spaces would I be allowed to
So you
require?
would need 3 parking spaces if each one is a 2-bedroom, right?
3
3 parking spaces.
total?
Yep.
For the 4 units?
4 parking spaces then.
Yep.
But 1 space per unit.
It's 1 space per unit if they're 2-bedroom.
Okay.
So they'd have to have 3, you said 3 mobile homes.
Yeah, 3 or 4, right?
So you would, yeah, it would be 3.
3 spaces?
Yep.
On site.
You could have more if you wanted to.
You could have more, but that's a limiting
Yep.
on a small, tiny lot.
Right.
How are you gonna do it is the question.
That's on them to figure it out. Do they want a garden or do they want more parking spaces? That's up to them. If they want to go in excess of the 3. So our theory behind this is if you have a studio or a 2-bedroom, you're probably only going to have 1 car, hopefully, 2 possibly. But when you have a 3 or more bedrooms, usually there's kids that are driving too, so you need more than just, and that's where the 2 parking spaces has been our standard for quite some time. Again, we struck out the parking standards for multiplex to keep it in line. Resource Protection District, that's again Chapter 1000, that whole section. This is dealing with sign regulation. The recommendation here for the road standards, we're not going to suggest moving forward with the dead-end roads and driveway limit, but we do recommend, this is something the Public Works Department wanted us to look at, is having a clear location delineations when it comes to where the utility lines run in a right-of-way. And so these are the standards that are recommended by the Public Utility Director for the town. And again, it's future-proofing. It's, as things change on a road, it's helpful to know where the gas line's going to be, electric line, sewer, water, if applicable.
And you weren't going to put that forward in November?
We're suggesting moving that forward, that section. We're not suggesting moving the dead-end roads and driveways because I know that you wanted to have more discussion on that.
Okay.
Did anyone see any issues with that?
No?
Okay.
No, that makes sense.
Again, we're skipping stormwater. We did make a change in section 247.6. This is the home occupation section. There was an exclusion in the free enterprise and forest zones of a home occupation shall not be permitted in a single-family dwelling, which there's an accessory apartment. We thought this is a very strange requirement to put in as an exclusionary measure.
Wait a minute, what does it mean?
So we're striking out this language that in all zones except free enterprise and farm and forest, if a single-family dwelling has an accessory apartment, they aren't allowed to have a home occupation. We don't really understand why having an accessory apartment would prevent someone from having a home occupation. So,
Or why a person renting a accessory apartment couldn't have a home occupation. It just seems to go against what our vision was for the comp plan of trying to be less restrictive with home occupations.
Right.
Either that or they didn't want someone to build an affordable, quote, an affordable, or accessory apartment and then use it for their office.
So for example, would this be?
I don't
It's
know,
it's so
that's right.
it's so strange.
That's
Why
the
is
only
it?
I can think
Because you
of.
could do that
Yeah.
without an accessory.
So if you were in a residential zone, or no? So if you're in a,
If you're in a farm and forest, free enterprise.
currently, any zone other than free enterprise or farm and forest can't have both a home occupation and an ADU. Why farm and forest and free enterprise are exempt is also odd. It's just a really weird
It's a weird
provision.
Let's get rid of it.
Yep.
I just can't get your head, it's like a double negative, it's like a quadruple negative when you're trying to figure out what it really means.
So I have a quick question. I just looked at
So
the
why are we
sentence.
prohibiting people that have an accessory apartment from having also a home occupation on the site? It's kind of strange.
So why are we keeping the following sentence? Only one home occupation shall be permitted per
Yeah.
dwelling unit. I have a husband and a wife, she's an accountant, he's a computer programmer.
Well, if you guys want to strike that out, you can.
I'm just wondering,
Maybe the idea is not that the accessory unit, apartment is a business,
Doesn't
and the
also
business
have-
is a business, so now you're allowing two businesses.
Yeah, I think we also wouldn't necessarily, I mean, people work from home, and we don't call that a home occupation. So unless, you know,
So
one,
you would have
one,
to have
unless,
like a real estate office. like
yeah,
you
if
would
one
be-
person is running a real estate office out of their house and one person's running a home bakery, that's two home occupations. But, you know, if someone works as an accountant and someone works as a programmer, they just both happen to work at home, that's not, we wouldn't call that a home occupation. It's just, they just work from home.
So we can
seem-
strike out that only one home occupation.
If you want to.
No.
That's-
Yeah, you know, if you guys want to get rid of it,
I mean,
that's.
it's, right now it goes to, still goes to the ZBA, which is something we should look at on, I know that's gonna be a
Right, we
larger
talked
discussion
about
we
that.
discussed about
Yeah.
was, you know, is it generating traffic to a home, or is
Right.
it just one that's, you know, very limited on what it does, and it doesn't have that many chemicals or things stored on site? It seems like a lot of people, they're not going through the process, because it is a tedious process to go through ZBA to get this accomplished, and I think we should be encouraging folks to, you know, be self-reliant and to do things and be entrepreneurial.
But you
but
don't
not
want to,
overregulate.
But it's yeah.
yeah,
there's
but
some
you don't
language.
want to cause like a neighborhood to become a business zone, right? Is that the adverse part of this? Is that you have traffic now coming into
Yeah,
neighborhoods?
that's why
Yeah,
Yeah.
these restrictions
yeah.
are there.
So does home occupation state that this is pertaining to access from, you know, the outside people coming, visiting the site? I mean, you could have somebody who has a gardening, landscape, timber, wood business on the property, and then you'd have someone
Is
who
there a
maybe does
definition?
sell bakery goods from.
Mhm.
So that would be two occupations, is that correct?
Well-
As we currently define
Well, if
occupations?
it's like a logging or something that they're doing on site, that'd be a different use.
Okay,
This is more, a home occupation is something in the home that's being done at that building. It's either the primary structure, the dwelling, or the accessory structure. So like someone has a woodworking shop and then someone has a bakery. Those would be two different uses, right? But if someone's farming and then they say, okay, my wife also wants to bake bread and do bakery, that's only one use, because we have agriculture as another use over here.
so if you have somebody who is pottery, makes pottery.
Yep, that's one.
That's one home
Yep.
occupation, but then someone who is an accountant in the other room, sort of.
Could be, or a psychiatrist that, you know, has their own firm. And I think there is a broader discussion I think we're going to have eventually that, okay, what's the impact that this is going to have on the surrounding community? I think a daycare would be a lot different, like someone doing that type of, or a hair salon or to that effect, someone's generating a lot of traffic to the site, would be a lot different than maybe, you know, a psychiatrist could only have like one client at a time. Those types of,
Sure.
so there is difference. There's the gradient. And I think we need to have a conversation on which ones maybe go to the ZBA and which ones can we permit to make things a little bit easier for people. Because I think we should be encouraging small businesses and people to be entrepreneurial, but
That would
look at
be-
the impact.
Right, I think the impact has to be looked at.
Okay.
Other performance standards here. We did change a multiplex 7.11. There was this weird open space buffer requirement.
Right.
And again, that seems to be just not in line with, I don't understand the logic at all with it. So we're trying to encourage some affordable housing, and I think that restriction is just, it's out of line for what we would require for a single family.
It would be nice to have some green buffers in town. And I understand that that's probably not gonna stand because it's gonna limit people being able to meet that 5,000 square foot building area.
And we do have setback requirements, so, and most people do put some sort of arborvitae or some other privacy screening up, because they do want that for their sides in their backyard too.
What's our topic that this comes under? I'm sorry.
Multiplex?
Multiplexes.
Yep.
So,
Wasn't this LD 2003 related?
Yes.
Yeah.
We can't be more
You can't be
restrictive
more
than single
restrictive than a
family.
single family, right?
But when they go to the planning board, does the planning board require a buffer? And so, what's the authority?
Yeah, there
everybody
is,
shows a planting
there is a buffer for subdivision review requirements, because if it's 3 or more, unfortunately with the state changing, that's now, yeah, it's going up to 4 if I remember correctly. 4.
I thought it
so
was
like if I
five.
drive
Multiplexes are
by-
no longer subdivision review.
if
correct?
I drive
In-
down Kennebunkport,
For up to 4 units.
In one building.
Yep.
In one building. If the lot is being split, it's
If they're
still
still being
3
split, they
units.
still have a
That's the
subdivision.
threshold.
Yeah, 5 units, you go to the other subdivision.
Yeah, if you have a 5-unit multiplex, you go to subdivision,
Right.
but 4 or fewer, you don't have to go through subdivision.
That's to prevent having to go to subdivision for one lot where you can put 4.
Yeah,
Right.
but again, if you're splitting individual lots, 3 lots is still the threshold. So if you're doing more than 1 lot split, you have to go to subdivision.
so if I drive down Kennebunk and I'm on Route 1, there's houses that they built, townhomes, I think, basically abutting the sidewalk. There's no open space, there's nothing,
Like behind Huntington Commons? Yes.
across from Wallingford's,
Is it in Kennebunk?
yeah.
I don't know what
Oh, I
their
know
setback
where.
requirements
No,
are.
but what I'm getting at is, does this get us to that point where you can just, I'm just trying to understand what this really means compared to our other things. Does this ever get us to a point where we just literally have, edge of whatever town right-of-way is, and then the building structures there? Or are we always going to be able to have some kind of green space setback? Because if you drive down and you start seeing how they're putting up these townhomes and stuff, there is,
Right on the sidewalk.
it's literally right on the sidewalk. I mean, like their door opens into the sidewalk.
So we have the setbacks,
Yeah.
so you can't be right on the sidewalk, but
But
nothing
can
that,
you have pavement? Could you have your parking spots right
well, you
in
could
front
have
of
your
it?
parking spots.
But I don't know with the state law that those setbacks will hold.
Our setbacks are, if we do change the dimensional standards, which was something in a table that we wanted to address, our setbacks would be uniform with single family, which as long as we're staying uniform, we can do that. If you want to pose greater setbacks for single family, we can certainly make it the same for multiplex. But we can't be we can't be more punishing to multiplexes than we are single family.
Is there any reason why we can't just keep H the way it is? And to allow more green space?
We'd
I
have to
just
put
don't know
for
why you, yeah, that's,
all property, all single families would have to have this, that's the thing.
are we
So every
treating them the
single family
same?
would
And I
have
don't
to
think
have
we are.
20-foot wide section. So,
That's pretty big.
The next section is 7.13, that's the residential mixed use. And again, this seemed like a very strange provision with a 60% open space requirement for residential mixed use. So this is a staff change. I think this is really limiting us. We don't really have, to my knowledge, I don't think anyone has ever used this use. And it's, I think because of some of these performance standards are pretty restrictive for how to make this work. Requiring twice the minimum lot size for on conforming lots seems restrictive. It's not encouraging mixed-use type development, which I think we should be trying to encourage, especially in our growth areas where this is allowed to go to the planning board for review. And we did put in here some clarifying language about they still have to meet the net residential area, even though they're limited to 4 units per building. They still have to meet the net residential area for that underlying zone. So that just clarifies it for people that they understand their lot size might not be big enough to support 4 units. So you just don't get it by right. 4 714 is the residential rental accommodations. This is your roomers. And as you'll see, we added kitchenette to that list of things that they're not allowed to have. And then the next section is your agritourism, which we will skip. And what's the next one?
Non-conformance and vested rights.
Non-conforming. So this is repair and maintenance. This came from chapter 1000. That was missing language that we had under the repair and maintenance section. So this requires it to be recorded with the registry of deeds if you take a 30% expansion. Before, it was something administratively we've always done. So this is again something that chapter 1000 wanted to address. And we should also delete that footprint. That was a miss up top there. You see it? Yep. I talked to Maine DEP about the footprint expansion and how we weren't going to go along with it, and he disagreed with us, but I said, look, we're more restrictive than you, so he relented, so,
Thank you.
yep. And the same thing with the certificate of occupancy, that should be also something we're gonna send forward. We're not going to issue it until the 30% expansion.
Right.
Subsection
What
B.
is that one? Say that one again?
So no certificate of occupancy of completion will be issued if it's not proof of recording hasn't been provided of the 30% expansion with the registry of deeds.
The problem has been people do it 25 years ago, and then they
Yeah.
come back in and ask for 30%.
They ask for 30% more.
Expansion again, and there's new staff, and
Papers get lost, you know.
So-
things
Oh,
happen.
so you're
so now you
requiring it
have
to
to
go on the
record it
deed?
with the deed.
Yep,
Oh,
Now,
Okay.
30 years from now, if it's in the file,
Yep.
I mean, you wouldn't go do a title search, I guess,
yeah,
it's better than now.
yeah. Okay. Whew.
Subsection B is added there about repairs to existing foundations may be approved without planning board approval. So this was something that the planning board did grant the code enforcement office the ability to do, especially when people were trying to elevate existing structures to be in compliance with the floodplain management ordinance. We were getting so many site plan reviews, and it
Right.
was simple. It wasn't something that was crazy. The only requirement they had of us is that we have to notify the abutters and give them at least a 14-day notice before we can issue the permit. So that's, we've kept in compliance with that. I think that's, anything else here that I think that's it. Under, I think it's under the admin section, there was just a word change, unless someone, this
Do you want to
was,
stick with this
which one?
stormwater
Oh, yes,
management?
that's under, site plan review. This was one of your comp plan, suggestion changes. So instead, we're changing it from a 50-year to a 100-year storm event for calculation purposes. So that's in your comp plan strategies. I don't know if you want to go forward with that or not.
So if
They
we
already
get,
have to do stormwater review, and we
Right.
hire a third party, so it's not a huge difference.
That's fine.
Thank you for catching that. And then, I think there was one under, oh, is that it?
what is this?
10,
Guideline. Oh, this is more site plan.
yeah, it's just site plan. So this is again the revegetation the performance standards of shoreline zoning is Article 5. So just making sure that they're in conformance with any of those provisions if it's applicable.
Scroll up, thank you.
This was missing section was 10.11. That section is pertaining to that the planning board can increase the required setback on a proposed structure. And it was something in chapter 1000 that we were missing. So it just gives the planning board a little bit more If they want to be more restrictive to the water resource, they can.
Why?
To protect a critically environmentally sensitive water body from development.
So what kind of situation would they be persuaded to do that versus another one?
I guess it's maybe like Lake of the Woods or Beaver Pond, where maybe it's impaired or concerned for impairment, and so they want to make sure that the structure's a little bit further back, they can certainly put that condition in. Or if it's like a commercial use that maybe it's a little bit different than a residential, they want to make sure that's a little bit further back, like a fish processing facility or something that might have some sort of leakage or something that might go into the
Okay.
water.
Is that too much an interpretation, though, open-ended?
I think it's meant to be open-ended because it's very site-specific. So, somebody may be technically meeting there may not be, somebody may be meeting the official setback to a resource, but let's say they're at the top of a steep slope that, they happen to be the appropriate amount of way, but we can see, the runoff down the slope will impact that resource. I think it is flexible on purpose so that the planning board has some discretion to limit how close people are to that
As long
resource.
as the record is documented as to why they're doing that.
Yeah,
it will stand
absolutely.
up to litigation from the
I mean,
property owner who wants to.
that section at 10.11, they can add conditions for anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have free reign to, this I think just clarifies
Yeah.
a little bit more in the shoreline zone that they can,
Okay.
even though the spirit of the shoreline zone has been met,
Yeah.
they can be more restrictive. And I think the state's saying, we want you to think about that when a development comes your way.
Okay.
And there, there is we have an appeals process. So if someone
Yep.
feels that the planning board has been too restrictive, they can always appeal a decision. We do have that option for people in our ordinance as well. That appeal goes to the zoning board of appeals.
And if they still disagree, they can take us to civil court and
Right.
go up that process.
This is just a typo.
Yep, that was a typo.
Okay,
I think that was it then.
there was one.
I think so too.
Yep. So that's your,
Well, thank you for
What-
all your incredible
Well-
work.
Yeah.
What did you do with the dimensional?
table at the bottom.
Yeah.
We're just not gonna do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're gonna take all that stuff out of there.
Yeah, so, it's not highlighted, so we're not
Yeah.
gonna try to push it forward.
Okay.
We're waiting for things to.
well, I
Yes.
think, yeah, again, with all the legislative changes that have happened, we know we need to take a look at it. Yeah.
So barring agritourism, is the committee comfortable with the language that we've gone over today, the highlighted things that we've talked about, moving that forward to the select board
Right, and when's that go to them?
next week?
Yeah, we have to submit it to them on Thursday, and then next week, they're gonna have their meeting.
And then there was one that we talked about, it was, I don't think it was, I guess it was agritourism.
Yeah, I had to ask.
So
Amy-
anything agritourism related we'll take out
Yeah.
Okay.
and we won't send
Right,
it.
I'd like to see a clean
Yeah,
piece.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Thank you
What's
very
that?
much.
I'd like to
for
see a clean
your
Oh,
work.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
What's in, what's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna need a
That's fine, I
motion.
think, I mean, you could present it to them, I'd like to see the clean piece that you're gonna send, right? And then at our next meeting, we can do our, dog and pony phone, show that we either agree or not agree that it's consistent with the comp plan.
Ki-
I don't think it matters that you put it before them. They're not gonna be voting on it, right, next week? You're voting on it?
Yeah,
For November warrant, in August,
we have to send it to Amy for review,
yeah.
so they're not going to do that until the select board has looked it over to review. I believe on the 28th, we have to sign that for the warrant, if my understanding is correct.
So will you be sending to us all the,
That's fine.
Yeah,
everything?
Yeah, so we can send a clean version, but
Yeah.
in order to be able to give our clerk the language to get it in, so that we can present it to the select board, we do need a motion from the growth planning committee that you guys are okay with the language we've talked about tonight.
Yeah, it's just,
And we'll skip agritourism, anything related to it.
Just for the future, the format makes it difficult for us to do this, because, oh, this is in, this is out, we're not putting this in, we're not gonna, it's green, it's red. You know, I read the standards this afternoon and said, why are we still looking at this? But you're not taking it out because it's just a format, the way the document is being developed. So, you know, in a more perfect world, if we had more time, it would be nice to see
Yeah, I think-
just what's going to the Board of Selectmen.
I think the November ballot, if I remember correctly, we lose 2 months of review ability. So it
Okay.
is a really short window to, yeah. But certainly, you know, Nadia and I are gonna work tomorrow, and we will send it out to you, the new revisions that we're sending, not all the other stuff. That way you know this is the clean version.
Can you do
That way
a
you're
vote-
comfortable with it.
Can you do a vote by mail? Can they do a vote
No,
by
they
mail?
can't.
They can't?
So if, would a motion along the lines of, as presented this evening with yellow highlights, excluding agritourism, the committee approves this to be sent to the select board?
Well, there's other things too.
Well, is there any
You-
reason why all of this can't wait till June?
We want, you know, we gotta approve some of this, because it's related to LD 2003, some of the aspects.
I think we should move to approve it, and then if anybody has a real problem with it, after we review the clean and say, we didn't agree to that, then we're not shy.
And, you know,
We can show up at the meeting.
we're not sending this directly to the ballot. It still goes through
No,
the
we
rest of the
understand.
process.
We
So
understand.
there is time, you know, if everyone's like, whoa, this is alarming, this isn't the final draft, like, this is what's going on the ballot. We just need to give the select board something for
Yeah.
them to look
I mean, I'm
at.
sure it will be fine. I'm not,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, the key is, I think, everything we discussed here, at least from my understanding of the comp plan, was consistent with the comp plan.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't see any inconsistencies with the comp plan. So I think, you know, that is whether or not we personally, any of us agree with it or disagree with an aspect. The fact that it's consistent is the important part for us to rule on. So I'd be happy to make a motion that, as discussed, what is planned to go forward to the selectmen is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Does that work?
Thank you. That works. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't vote.
There are enough, plenty of us here tonight.
You also need to motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your reminders.
Well done.
And this is not the July meeting we're closing, it is the August.